Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
Welcome back to Fighting on Film. We are back from our unplanned 1 month hiatus. Firstly, before we begin the show, I'd like to thank all of our listeners, followers, patron supporters, and anyone from whatever social media account you follow us on, for supporting us during the unplanned break. I won't go into details now, but I want to thank the FOF faithful for all the messages and well wishes over the last month. It's really given me a lot of solace, and just nice to have some friendly faces to talk to during this topsy-turvy time at home. But it's great to be back. Matt, we're back in the saddle, aren't we?
I know. We're America's 103rd best movie review podcast.
Yeah, we get a chartable email every week that shows us in the rankings. We don't really check it half the time, do we? But
how we managed that, I don't know. But what an accolade that
incredible.
is.
Get that on a plaque on the door.
But no, it is good to be back.
Yeah, it's good. It's nice to see you again, mate. Nice to, I say see you a lot anyway, but it's nice to be back podcasting. So Matt, I thought I'd kick off the show before we get into the meat of this one. Did you watch any good films while we've been away? It's a loaded question because
good is a debatable question, but yeah, I mean, we both kind of co-watched an interesting Michael Gambon film, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Paths of War, was it?
Paths of War, yeah. Michael Gambon,
where he plays LBJ.
LBJ biopic. Yeah.
What an audacious casting that was by HBO.
Yeah, with Alec Baldwin.
Donald Sutherland was in there too.
Donald Sutherland, yeah. Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump.
Gary Sinise.
Gary Sinise. Yeah, Gary Sinise, yeah. That was an interesting movie. Like, I wouldn't say that Gambon is 100% LBJ, but he was giving it a good go.
It was a film that really wanted to be about Robert McNamara, but wasn't. It was odd. It
really did become about
film.
McNamara halfway through, didn't it? Yeah.
We watched that was a long film because it was obviously an HBO two-parter originally.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like 2.5 hours.
It was a long one. It was about like 4 a.m. or something.
And we didn't even start the beginning of it. We just channel hopped to it.
No, I was on this morning. I took my little one to playgroup, and then I came back and I was like, I'll see what's on Sky Movies and catch something. And it was on. So I think I watched like the 10 minutes we didn't watch. I didn't miss anything. And then I remember I watched, I say I remember, but I was with Matt at the time. We watched the Star Trek Next Generation films, didn't we, together?
We did. This is part of Rob's epic journey into becoming a Star Trek fan, which I wholeheartedly condone.
Yeah.
We watched First Contact and Insurrection and Nemesis. We watched Nemesis. Yeah. We watched Insurrection and Nemesis together. You watched First Contact on your own, didn't you? A little bit before.
Well, that's a war film in my book, so it's going to be covered.
I agree. I mean, it's the closest Trek gets in the films to a war movie.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Obviously, DS9 has the actual war in it.
The Dominion War. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, definitely. We will do a sci-fi month eventually, and First Contact will definitely have to be in there. Maybe Aliens, Battlefield, Los Angeles. Well, Battle Los Angeles. Battleship, yeah.
Got to put one shit one in there, haven't we?
There's a lot, yeah. Yeah, and we watched Under Siege that night, didn't we? We watched Paths of Glory. We rewatched that because it's a classic.
Yep. It's just so good.
It's in a schlocky kind of bad way. It's good.
It's peak 90s action movie.
Yes, definitely.
It's Seagal's best film.
It's not saying much.
Purely because Tommy Lee Jones is in it.
Oh, it's great.
Tommy Lee Jones, Gary Busey, and Colm Meaney are chewing the scenery, having a great time, and then we just get weird intermittent scenes with Steven Seagal
shooting at things. Yeah. And not running very fast.
Weird weapon handling and bad acting.
Fantastic. It's fun. Yeah, it's great. I also watched 13 Days, the Cuban Missile Crisis film. Yeah, that was good. Really enjoyed
Mm.
that. I can't remember who it had in it now. Oh, Kevin Costner
Costner.
doing a funny
Yeah,
Boston
Costner.
accent. Yeah. No, that
I
was a really good
feel
film.
I feel like they were trying to go with that with the LBJ film. They were trying to get that
They
nail that
were.
level. Was that
Yeah.
Oliver Stone, wasn't it? 13 days.
No, that was you're thinking JFK.
Ah, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's in the JFK mold though. You know,
Mm, mm.
done very well. I enjoyed that movie, even though you know what's going to happen. You know, the atom bombs don't get fired in the missiles. You
Yeah,
know.
you do sort of like forget its history and suspend belief. Like,
Yeah.
oh shit, I really hope that U2 doesn't go down. Oh fuck,
Oh,
ah.
they need to stop those Cuban boats. It's gonna. Oh God. You know. Um. So I really enjoyed it. You know, proper a late 90s, early thousands filmmaking that I just don't feel I feel we've lost that somewhere. Anyway, but moving on to this week's film. So to get us back in action, we went to see separately, might add, Civil War, the new A24 film. It's just
Mm.
come out this weekend. And obviously from here on in, spoiler alert if you've not seen it. But you know, in typical FOF fashion, we like to bring you the reviews as quickly as we can.
And if you're turning off because it's a spoiler review, I would definitely encourage you to go and see it because it's definitely. I know it's on an IMAX right now, but I saw on
Mm.
a normal screen. I think you did too.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Um,
Cineworld.
but it definitely stands up to a cinema viewing rather than
Mm.
streaming at home sort of thing.
I
Um,
would, unless you've got like a fantastic sound setup. So I think I'll kick off with production if you don't mind, Matt.
Absolutely, it's A24's biggest ever picture, right?
I know, right? Yeah. So before we get to that, it was directed and written by English Academy Award nominee director writer Alex Garland. He's famous for writing 28 Days Later and its sequel. He wrote Dread, which is fantastic, by the way. Love that movie. One of the better comic book adaptations for me. He directed Ex Machina, Men, Annihilation, and he's also reportedly developing an Iraq war film called Warfare that is said to be starring Will Poulter, Cosmo Jarvis, and Michael Gandolfini, James Gandolfini's son. So
Oh
that'll be
wow,
interesting.
that's
Mm.
exciting.
It looks like
Oh
it might be
cool.
like a platoon level thing because they're all very like 20,
Mm,
mid-20s, early 20s actors. So keep an eye
yeah.
on that one.
Well, that'd be good.
Um, yeah, and Alex Garland told a reporter at the premiere of this film that pairing of California and Texas was in part to obfuscate the politics, but more importantly, that these two states put aside political differences to challenge an unconstitutional, fascist, and corrupt president who is killing American civilians. He said, "Are you saying that extremist politics would always remain more important than the president of this sort? That sounds crazy to me." So that's interesting.
Mm,
I think the way this movie tackles its war is very, very interesting, but we'll get back to that. So,
yeah, we
cinematography,
will.
yeah, we definitely will. So, cinematography is by Rob Hardy, he's an English cinematographer. He worked on Ex Machina, Mission Impossible. I think it was the fourth one. The Book of Clarence and Men, another Garland movie. It's made in association with DNA Films, who are responsible for producing Train Spotting, The Parole Officer, 28 Days Later, along with an investment firm, IPRVC. It's distributed by the acclaimed A24 production company known for indie hits. Well, they were known for indie films, but they're now getting known for more box office draw. As the years have gone by, they've produced Hereditary, The Iron Claw, everything, 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 everywhere, all at once. That is so hard to say off the cuff. And the fantastic Uncut Gems, which have all done superbly well critically and commercially.
Resisting
Um,
the urge to do Uncle Gems. But anyway, yeah, no, I agree. They are producing some really interesting films, and they always have, to be fair.
oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
of course, if
um,
you're a movie person, you know who A24 is.
yeah, yeah. There is a fair number of memes out there with the A24 Chad
Yes,
layout and such. Look those up.
definitely.
They're quite funny.
Yeah, yeah. If you're into the BFI, you're probably into A24. If you
Yeah.
know, you know. Anyway, so the film was produced for a budget of $50 million, making it the most expensive A24 film to date, and has stormed the box office as Matt said, becoming A24's highest grossing opening weekend to date. At the time of recording, it's grossed 2.57 million over the release weekend. and I think the projections are quite healthy. I'd love this one to make a profit, just so we can get more from this world.
I can't see why it wouldn't be.
Yeah, me neither. No, it's heavily marketed as well, which, lately some films haven't been getting as good marketing. I think they should be.
That's true.
So it's nice to know that it's had a good marketing round. Anyway, it's filmed in Atlanta, Philadelphia, London, and Hampton in the US. London, UK, Hampton,
So
US.
I recognised a couple of places from some of the places where things like The Walking Dead are filmed, because they film a lot in Atlanta because of it's a in terms of like finance, it's a good place to film. Like there's a lot of tax breaks and stuff, I believe.
Oh yeah.
For production. That scene where there's the long road that kind of curves up and they were driving through it and he goes off road a little bit onto the other side of the carriageway. That they have like there's at least like 2 Walking Dead episodes set in that exact stretch of highway.
Oh wow, okay. Wow. Amazing. So the review this week is not a retro review. It's a contemporary review. Very rare we do this. From empire.com, and I've truncated it because some of it explains the plot in a little bit more detail. And kicks off by saying, "This is a gorgeously made film full of shock and awe. War is hell, and it's never looked better. We learn tidbits on how the situation deteriorated, that Texas and California, operating under a two-star flag, have joined together as the Western forces, while a Florida alliance has been defeated. Such details largely appear matter-of-factly in the background, and Garland's script is deliberately vague. The reasons for the conflict almost immaterial compared to the conflict itself. By uniting Texas and California, 2 states traditionally from opposing sides of the political coin, Garland seems to want to move past the usual political binaries and look at the bigger picture. Anyone hoping for a direct commentary on the state of things in 2024 might find this a frustrating act of fence-sitting, a centrist dad in cinematic form. As a political statement, Civil War is provocative and occasionally exasperating as a purely cinematic experience. It's urgent, heart-in-mouth, extraordinary stuff."
So when we first shared the trailer for this on social media, to garner initial reactions, because we were like, "Oh, okay, this is interesting subject matter."
Yeah.
And we have an American audience as well as a British one.
We do.
I think that's fair to say. And we appreciate everyone.
Hello, everyone across the pond. Shout loud enough.
Welcome to Fight on Film USA.
One day, you never know. Yeehaw, everyone.
And obviously, it's more pressing and more poignant and timely for them. But I can certainly see why that trailer elicited some not concern, but some
reactions, shall we say?
Some reactions, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we'll talk about this a little bit later on when we get to the meat of the film. But I think the way that Garland handles things is very deft. I think the way he doesn't lean into context or exposition too heavily is very good. I think the fact that he just puts us on the ground is a very clever way of delivering the narrative.
You're there at the climax. You're not there at the start as well. So the people involved as well on the ground, I think it's lost a little bit sometimes in the movie, but the people in the ground have already talked about this probably ad nauseum for how many months or years this has been going on. So they know already. So it's naturalistic in that way. And you are literally thrown in, the Nick Offerman. Well, Matt doesn't mean good done cast yet, but I've ruined that. Nick Offerman playing the president. He's practicing this big sort of victory-esque speech at the start. And then you learn about what's happening. Yeah. But I'm like, it's very well done that first little bit. And then they sort of move away from it. You're like, hang on, where's exposition? Come back, But we'll talk about more later. But no, I think that's a good review. I think it's a fair one. I've seen some different ones here and there, but I think the reaction on the whole has been positive, I think. Yeah. And then what did you guys think? We got the first one-word review back for been away for a while. So we have Jim Dudeq says current. Ian McKellen goes with impactful. Stephen O'Neill made us laugh by saying, "What's it about?" And Matt replied saying it's a civil war. And he was like, "With who?" Which did make a chuckle. The Sophisticats review put "I am out." What the squad machine gunner yells in the final battle. Pancho goes with great. Dr. Phil Wolves goes with troubling. Chris Hughes says gripping. Dr. Stephen Marushin goes with spam javelin, which he has connected it. Ian May says intriguing. My boss, Francis of the operations room, goes with not quite the film the trailer made it look made out. Not quite the film the trailer made it look like, all connected up. So I guess it's one word. That's interesting because I thought the initial trailer, yes, it did look more war filmy, but then I don't know what I was expecting anyway. So I did go into this one a little bit blind.
Yeah, no, what I did as well. I didn't want to read too much around it. I didn't really read any reviews or any cast interviews or that kind of thing. I didn't read any of the junket stuff. And yeah, the trailer does make it look a little bit more like it's an out and out action war movie rather than something that's a little bit more cerebral.
Yeah, but then it does have these massive bombastic set pieces.
To the point where you sat like 3/4 of the way through thinking, I wonder where they're going with this. And then they go there.
Oh, they go there. They go there. Yeah. It's something this movie gets in spades is scale. So Matt, time for cast.
Yeah, so we are led off by Kirsten Dunst, who plays Lee Smith, a renowned war photographer from I think I can't remember the outlet they're with. Is it Reuters? It's Reuters, isn't it?
Reuters, yeah.
And
it'll sound very American.
That's Jesse Plemons, who makes an uncredited appearance as a ultranationalist militiaman, according to the credits I found.
Oh.
I assumed when we were watching it, I thought he might have been US Army or perhaps
he's definitely
forces.
An ultranationalist from that scene.
Yeah. And Plemons is known for Friday Night Lights, Breaking Bad, Battleship, Black Mirror, that one episode with the USS Callisto, which is like a Star Trek parody.
It's getting a sequel, that.
Apparently so, yeah.
Yeah.
Bridge of Spies, American Made, The Irishman, The Power of the Dog, Killers of Flower Moon, and then upcoming he has a series with De Niro, which is described as a political thriller called 0 Day, which is I think on Netflix. So that's what he's got coming up. So yeah, back to Kirsten Dunst. Dunst is a household name. We all know who she is. You know, she was a very competent child actor, to be honest. Has to be said.
Yeah,
like Jumanji, Small Soldiers, a terrible episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
So many Star Trek references in this episode. Oh my
word! Let the
floodgates
open.
Yes.
She was in a frequency. She was in a really interesting movie, TV movie about the Ruby Ridge siege called The Siege at Ruby Ridge with Randy Quaid.
Wow.
The Virgin Suicides, the Spider-Man movies, Eternal Sunshine, Marie Antoinette, Fargo, Hidden Figures, and then she had an Oscar nom last year for Power of the Dog.
Yeah.
I think she had took some time out. She's married to Plemons and they have kids in like 2018.
Okay.
So this is kind of like her
power couple. I'd never seen that coming, but what a power couple, yeah.
So like she's having a comeback with Power of the Dog and with this obviously. And then I think Plemons, it's fair to say, he's on an upswing at the moment with
massively.
Killers of Flower Moon.
People love him.
And Power of the Dog as well.
Yeah.
No, he's a good actor. I think he's good.
He's fantastic.
It's a very small scene that he's in, but it's a very good one. It's kind of pivotal, I think.
He's in all the trailers as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, like 10,000 airsofters are going to buy those red glasses.
They definitely are. Yeah.
And they're probably going to be the least, out there people that do that.
Probably, yeah.
Then we've got Wagner Moura, who plays Joel, and he's a journalist from Florida, and he's Lee's colleague at Reuters. He's been in a slew of South American films, including Elite Squad 1 and 2, which is about the Rio military police, and they're quite well known in Brazil. Elysium in 2013, Sergio in 2020. He's probably best known for his roles in Narcos and Narcos Mexico, where he played Pablo Escobar.
He was fantastic in that. Yeah.
I saw him recently in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where he plays an alternate Smith.
Okay.
and he was very good in that as well. Which is, it's not a bad show, that actually. It's kind of fallen away, I think, in terms of
That's streaming
hype a
for
little
you,
bit. It's
know.
wild, isn't it?
The
I think
pump
we'll have
and
to do
dump
like a
them,
bit,
don't
a bit
they?
of a rumination on streaming in general at some point.
Oh,
I think
I was
the,
kind of over it in a way now. Yeah, just like,
there's a lot to talk about in terms of how streaming affects our kind of
yeah. It's
chosen
the thing is,
media
unless
medium.
you're there day one, you could just feel like these things just pass you by, and then you want to talk about it like 3 months later, and I was like, but that was months ago. We've all seen it.
And then we talk about Star Trek: The Next Generation, which happened 35 years ago.
Yeah,
We're
exactly. Yeah.
like Rob's watching an episode of DS9. I'm like, oh, it's a good one, that one. All right, it's a good one, that one.
Yeah. Oh God, I bought a t-shirt, a next generation t-shirt that's as old as me. Christ, that's how long ago it is.
Literally
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. Then we've got Callie Spaney. I think that's how her surname's
Hmm.
pronounced, and she plays Jessie Cullen, who's an aspiring young photojournalist who accompanies Lee and Joel on their journey. She's been in Pacific Rim Uprising, Bad Times at El Royale. Did you ever see Bad Times at the El Royale?
No, I didn't, but I wanted to.
I really rated that film, and not many people
It
saw it, I
seemed
don't think.
Cohen's brothery. That's why I wanted to see it.
It was very atmospheric. It had a great narrative plot to it. It was really
Mm.
interesting. She's probably best known recently for portraying Priscilla Presley in the Priscilla biopic, which came out
Ah,
just this last 6 8 months. And she's about to appear in the Alien Romulus, the upcoming
nice.
new
Yeah.
installment of the
It's
Aliens
got a pulse rifle
movies.
in it. They're back. It's back.
Yeah, it's a proto one too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Friend of the show, Jonathan Ferguson, was posting about that on his on his social media. He was
Oh,
very
I bet he
excited
was.
to spot
I
that
bet
one.
he was.
Then we've got Stephen McKinley Henderson, who is a fabulous actor. He plays Sammy. He's the veteran journalist of from what's left of the New York Times, is how Joel describes it. And he's sort of Lee and Joel's mentor. They're very close, but there's a little bit of professional rivalry
Yeah.
as well. And the dynamic between them is really good. I think it gets that blend of mentor and colleague and
He adds
friend.
that like old head. It's
He does,
really,
yeah, yeah.
you
He
know.
knows his shit. He's been there, he's done it.
Mm.
He's had a very long TV, film, and theatre career. Lincoln in 2012, Manchester by the Sea, Lady Bird, Wu-Tang, An American Saga.
Oh,
And he's also been in the recent two Dune movies as well.
yeah. No, he's a fantastic actor. Been in a ton. Like really good guy. Really great.
Mm.
A lot of weight to his performance. It's a very good cast. Are you done or are you not?
No, there's a couple more I'll go over, but I agree. It is a very strong cast. Obviously, we've got Offerman that we mentioned
Hmm.
earlier, and he plays the president, who's become a bit of a dictator, forcing through a third term.
Yeah.
Probably not in the way FDR did, but
No,
Um,
no,
then we've
not a
got
popular one. No.
exactly.
Yeah.
So he's probably best known for being in Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous, 2006.
Wow.
The Men Who Stare at Goats, 2009. He was, of course, the iconic Ron from Parks and Rec, which
Yep.
is, I think, the character that everyone will probably
Remember it for forever.
remember him for,
Yeah.
ironically. He was also at Bad Times at the El Royale,
Okay.
and he has a
You got
role in
shares in
the.
that movie, mate. You're trying to get
I
some
don't, that's
recognition.
the last mention. If there's another mention, maybe I'm going to get some kickback. Anyway, what, 4 years later? Like 6 years later.
It's in the
Something.
post. It's in the
Yeah,
post.
yeah. Backdating that check. He's got a role coming up in A Complete Unknown, which is a Bob Dylan biopic with Timothy Chalamet.
Oh yeah, I've seen the stills from that. It looks interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Did you ever see? Probably not. I Am Here, which had like Kate Blanchett
Oh,
as
I've
Dylan.
seen clips of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was good. It had like various different people playing him. It was an
Can't
interesting
wait for
movie.
Timothy to be going. Like, can't wait to hear him do that. See if he gets it.
Let's see how deep he can go. Um, then we've got
What a return
who
for the
else?
pod.
Yeah, everyone's been waiting for this quality.
They come for the Civil War chat, but they stay for the awful impressions.
Then we've got Nelson Lee as Tony, who's a Hong Kong reporter who's good friends with Lee and Joel. He was in the Blade TV series a while back. He was also in Westworld. Most recently, he's been in Mulan, the Disney live action remake.
Yep.
And Star Wars is Ahsoka as well. He had a role in Ahsoka, which I started watching, got halfway through, and kind of like forgot to finish watching that.
I do that for a lot of Star Wars stuff now. I'm not 10 anymore. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the last three movies sullied it so much for me. I was just like, I don't know whether I can invest the time.
I watched The Mandalorian. It's the only thing I'm enjoying that they're doing.
Yeah, I watched that and the other recent one that everyone raved about.
Andor.
Andor, that was it.
Yeah.
I know there's a second season of that coming. Then we got Sonoya Mizuno, who plays Anya, a British reporter covering the Western forces. She's kind of embedded with them, with their cameraman. And she basically is there for the last act of the film.
Yeah, she's barely in it, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's very focused on that court cast throughout. She was in Ex Machina, Maniac, which was a 2018 Netflix show with oh God, I forget who was in that, but it was very good. Rob's thinking it's coming.
Tip of my tongue because I watched it and I bloody enjoyed it.
Emma Stone
and Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill.
Yeah, good series. That
once again, everyone's just like, thank God Foff is back. Just such a professional show. She was also in House of the Dragon, which is that show, and Crazy Rich Asians as well.
It's one of the shows of all time.
It certainly is, apparently. And that rounds out cast, which I think in general is very strong and
very
there's some very good performances.
Yeah, that they all feel real. Like there's something they get. There's just enough about them to make them work. I'll talk about that more in a minute. I've written something about the Ali Tally.
I think we should get a T-shirt with "I'll talk about that more in a minute" on. I've just realised how often we say that, you know.
But I say that I'll talk about that more in a minute, and then I never do. So I think without a
9
doubt,
times out of 10 we do, but sometimes we don't.
Yeah. It's a circle. It's an arc. It all comes back around.
Oh
so
my God.
Let's bring back the triumphant return of the Ali Tally.
It's time for Ali Tally on Fighting on Film.
I'm Captain Dale Dye, and you're listening to Fighting on Film.
Matt, the floor is yours. The first Ali Tally of the comeback.
We've got some cool stuff to talk about this week. We got not only weapons, but we got cameras.
Yeah,
and
rare.
Both Rob and I are big fans of combat photography and combat photographers and the history behind them and the work that they've done. So it was really interesting to finally get a film where, not finally, there's been others, but
there's been others, yeah,
a more recent entry into the subgenre. To get photographers, combat photographers, and this film leans heavily into it, and I enjoyed that. So
it's not a MacGuffin, is it? It's not treated.
No, it's not. It's not
a plot device. It's their job. Like they're doing their job. Like that's the point of their whole plot is them doing their job.
Yeah, and a lot of reads on what this film is about is a rumination on the do you become involved in an incident while you're reporting on it? Do you take that photograph? That kind of question, which again we will talk about that.
How close do you get to it?
Probably later on. So Jessie is running all film, which is interesting. She's rocking a pair of Nikon cameras. She's running an FE2 and I think an F3, but you kind of only see
God,
that briefly.
If the weapons chat goes over people's heads, this camera chat is gonna fucking be.
Oh my God, I love all cameras. So context for this is I was a photographer, kind of still am, but did a lot of film photography, did a lot of digital, and predominantly street photography as well. So it kind of street photography is the closest you can get to combat photography without people shooting at you, I think.
Well, depends where you are.
Right.
You know.
So for me, seeing like film cameras, that was pretty fun. And then Lee's running I think it's a Sony Alpha, and they've put tape over the Sony.
Yeah.
So I don't think they got any
No.
sponsorship on the camera side of things.
No, it's not a Sony movie, is it?
No,
It's a
but
Sony-
I don't know whether the
Sony wouldn't want their
Sony
product,
camera
do
side of things is separated from the
they?
Sony
Maybe
movie
couldn't get
production side
clearance.
of things.
Something it might be
Who
something
knows?
really small, you know.
And I think that she has a Leica 35 Lux lens on
Okay.
her camera, which is a very small little compact
Yeah.
lens. Then
And
she has
she's
a
got one
larger
of them big fat
telephoto one.
ones
Yeah,
later on.
telephoto that she uses
Yeah.
to try and spot a sniper, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to have a little stab
Sure.
at some Ali stuff before we
Yeah, so no,
rock back
I
to
like
me?
the cameras are really good. I liked it. Showed like I thought it was interesting that the older journalist in Lee was using the more modern camera, and the younger, the upstart in the girl Jessie, she's using film. I like that sort of contrast in their styles. So I read something on in a review. It's about that Jesse's doing it where you're on film and you can't delete that, whereas Lee can delete the photos she makes. So she's in full control, whereas Jesse isn't. It was an interesting little thing. But in terms of military stuff, there's a massive smattering of just if you've seen a picture of the American Army in the last 10 years, it's in this movie in a way. There's M4s, lads running around in plate carriers, digital camos quite heavily.
Yeah, you got Marine Marpat and MTP as well.
There's there's a sequence with you're never sure who they are, because it's one great thing about this movie. You're never quite sure unless they in the end they specifically tell you who is who. You're never sure who you're looking at, what side are they on, what's their allegiance, and I like that. It adds great scale to the civil war that's going on around the cast. But there's guys in Hawaiian shirts and plate carriers fighting what could be US forces or could be one of the Western Force faction.
Yeah,
you never know.
I'm assuming that those guys were Florida Federation.
I thought they might have just been local militia or something, because they were trying to take back an apartment building. So and there was only a few of them. So it's this whole thing, as we've seen with civil war conflicts, so many little factions come out of the woodwork and fight their own war. You look at the Spanish Civil War, how many different factions were fighting under the banner of socialism, but they're actually fighting for their own cause. We get it here, and I really like that. The way the movie explored that. Then in terms of vehicles, there's an M1 Abrams tank. There's definitely one. It's a one that's been painted green, and you see it a few times, but they edit it well, so it looks like there's way more of them than there is. The Chinooks, Humvees. There's a Javelin at one point, which was really cool to see. I think everyone in the Western world knows what Javelin looks now because of Ukraine. But there's a great bit where it's fired into the Lincoln Memorial, which I just didn't think I'd ever see on film, but it's very well done.
The last act of this film is wild,
bombastic,
and I wondered whether we were going to see anything like that. They could have, if it had been a smaller budget movie, they could have they got to a certain point and they got stopped, and then news comes through the president's dead, and they could have done it in a completely different way.
You see a bit of it, you see one sequence they could film, but no, I've said it in my final thoughts, but every dollar of this movie is being pushed to its limit, especially in these action sequences. They are up there with some of the best tightly directed firefights I've seen.
Well, if you take those militia dudes, they're all wearing one's wearing airsoft plate carrier, armor type stuff. Some of them are wearing actual plate carriers,
and they got ran cargo, very sort of tactical cargos on and things like that.
And then Hawaiian shirts over the top of that as well, which is kind of their unit. They're friend or foe,
probably
kind of ID. Which is a terrible idea. But they're running things like Daniel Defense M4s and just US civilian market kind of
it's cool.
carbines.
I like that touch.
That kind of stuff that you would imagine you would be very surprised not to see.
Like the guys at the gas station, they've defending the gas station. They've got these really tricked out civilian carbines. So I really like that. Everyone's bought their cheap Temu 3-point sling and he's rocking it. I really like that. And then even down to the non sort of military factions. You've got there's a very small sequence where you see the presidential security team in their suits. They got the Glocks and the MP5Ks. Like that's really nice little detail. I really like that. You could have skimped on it. They could have just been armed with M4s and it would have been absolutely fine. But I like the little nod. Even down to like the presidential cars and things. That was really nice.
That was cool. The Beast is trying to escape and stuff. That was a very interesting sequence. I liked that sort of depiction of the last stand of the Secret Service. Great.
Yeah,
because there's that famous photograph of can't remember whether I think it was 92 or 93, where there was a possible maybe there was going to be a coup in Russia and Yeltsin was going to get deposed, and there's a load of FSB dudes with AKS 74Us, and stuff, and they're just in their suits. They're in in the building waiting and like looking out of a window pensively, and there's all kinds of things where you think about politicians or dictators about to be deposed, and their personal security details are, close to hand.
It's a nice little touch. They're like the last bastion of defense.
And it flips it on its head because the US is they're the good guys, and the Secret Service are the good guys that defend the commander in chief. They're the daily protection of that.
Well, I mean, they weren't getting help from the FBI because they've been disbanded in this alternate reality.
So the fact that he's a dictator and they flipped that, good guy, Secret Service protecting the bastion of democracy on its head. It's cool. It's a cool way of doing it. There's a Carl Gustav during the
that was cool. I like that. Yeah.
During the assault on the White House, where it takes out a Humvee, which is pretty cool. I would not wanted to have been the chaps in that.
Oh, they were nails.
Sort of like defense post.
Absolute nails.
Especially when the Abrams turned up. That was always going to be a bad time for them.
And in that sequence as well, I'm going to say it again later, but the sound design of this movie is so good. And I think that's why we're saying, like, please go to the cinema and watch this, because it's deafening. Like not only did gunshots that would start sequences maybe jump, and you were feeling every thud, every hit of the guns. Like when the 50 cals come in and start opening up, it's like this massive thudding, and it was like really cacophony of sound.
When the characters are close to gunfire, it becomes more percussive.
It's so well done,
which gives it a more immersive feel to actual. It puts you right in the scene, which I thought was really good.
Really great. I've got something else as well this week, because I know Matt loves it when I talk about clothes reflecting characters.
Let's go.
So I thought that the civilian clothing of the press team really helps define them. So you've got Joel with his like graphic t-shirt, skinny jeans, and his like beads. I think he had on, smoking a cigarette. He's got his tash. He's a bit of like this rock and roll type, sort of Tim Pagey, this sort of like rock and roll heroes of the war journalism era. Look about him. Then you've got Lena, suede jacket, jeans, all-purpose boots, big camera bag. You feel like this life of work's on her shoulders. Like she's carrying it all around, and she is in the movie because you see her having flashbacks to clearly being in maybe Iraq or Afghanistan, and seeing a riot happen in another country that we don't know where it is. And you see it all on screen. It's really well done. And then we've got Sammy in his suit. He's a proper elder statesman type, working for the New York Times, prim and proper guy. And then you've got Jessie in a like ankle knocking slim jeans with like New Balance trainers on, and a hoodie. And it shows like how like she's the new start, but she's like a younger version of Lee. And it's like, later on I'm thinking, well, she'll swap out those New Balances for a pair of all-purpose boots, from Go Outdoors or whatever, and she'll develop. But I really liked it. It was subtle and it wasn't in your face, but the more I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, that sort of jacket reminds me of something that I forget the woman's name now, but Kate, the war journalist for the BBC for ages. What was her name?
Kate Adie.
Kate Adie, something like she might wear and things like that. And then later on you've got that press team, the news reporters, and they're in like Erdl, hand-me-down Erdl uniforms with their like press Kevlar on. It was just really nice, and it's something we don't get a lot of in war movies. We don't see a lot of civilian combat photographers, war photographers depicted. So it was really just nice to see how that was dealt with and how that works in a war zone. I think it was really, really powerful.
Yeah, yeah. I also liked how the truck that they're in the press truck progressively gets more battered.
Yeah, it's
as
nice.
The trip goes on. It's a good visual
metaphor.
Yeah, there's lots of really cool little things you can pull out of this. There's an interesting scene where Jessie is developing her stuff in the field because she's a film photographer. She talks about carrying the chemical solution in her waistband, so it's body temperature, and then she gets out a developing bag like kit, and she, Lee comes over and she's got all of her negatives, so like drying, like pegged onto an old like deck chair.
Yeah,
and that's a cool sequence. I have a couple of issues with it in terms of like
I've been hearing about this for days.
Well, we only saw it the other day, but in terms of that sequence, because it's a nod and an explanation that she can develop film in the field. It is doable, it is possible, but there's certain things that she doesn't do, and that kind of in the technical side of things, there's a little sort of like tube that she pours the solution in and puts the negative in. That's like to develop it. She puts the developing fluid in there. And you're supposed to move that around, but she kind of just like sets it down and has a 10-minute chat. And that would have probably ruined the photographs.
See, but for me, that section is to show you that subtly that the phone signals are all down.
Yeah, no, that entire scene is just exposition for the characters and to bond Jessie and Lee together and to show some of Jessie's burgeoning work,
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's me for Ali Tally this week.
Me too. Favorite scenes?
Yeah, favorite scenes.
Hello there. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to let you know that you can now join our supporting cast over on Patreon. As thanks for your support, you'll be able to help us pick films, submit questions for guests, have first pick on brand new and exclusive merch, and much more. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
So it's hard to pin for me, but obviously we can't not talk about the scene with Jesse Plemons in, because it's one of the most shocking. Like every little, they're almost like a sequence of vignettes. This movie's more like a road movie set.
I've got that
to
as well.
War in an indie road movie, coming of age film. It's a lot going on, but it works. So there's a sequence where Matt mentioned the Hong Kong journalist, and he meets up with so Joel's mate, another journalist, meets them on the road, and they have this section where he jumps into their car and then Jesse jumps into the opposite car. So they speed off and then they lose them on the road. They almost crash the van, but then they get back and they notice as they're driving through this little village that the car's empty, like it's left on the side of the road. And then they have this moment where they find where Jesse and the man are, and Joel's mate, and they use the telephoto lens, and it's these three soldiers being led by Jesse Plemons, and they've got like an excavator tipper, and they're like tipping dead bodies into a pit, and Jesse's throwing lime over them. And it's all a bit distressing and mad, that this rogue element, this three guys are just ethnic cleansing on their own. And then it becomes this extended sequence where Plemons' character he's not unnamed. So Plemons' character is talking to them about, what kind of American are you? It's in the trailer. It's probably one of the most affecting lines of the movie. And I think Jesse says she's from Missouri. Lee says she's from Colorado. Joel's from Philly. Is it Philly or Florida?
Florida.
Florida.
And then when the guy that Jesse was with says he's from I think it's Hong Kong. He says, isn't it?
Hong Kong,
China.
yeah.
Lemons just goes, "Oh, China," and then shoots him in the
That's not very
chest, point
American.
blank.
Yeah, shoots him, and it's so brutal and sort of off the cuff killing, and like no thought or rhyme or reason to it. And it's this whole thing of like it's showing the ambiguity and vagueness of his allegiance and the whole war as a whole, for what we
Mm-hmm.
know as an audience. Like,
It's
you
the
know,
societal breakdown as well, isn't it?
exactly
It's the
like the
kind of thing that we've been seeing, from around the world, Africa and Asia and countries where, the rule of law is broken down to the point where it's armed gangs.
yeah,
And the
it's
fact
that.
that you're seeing armed gangs in a first world country, which is, the leader of the free world,
Mm,
that's the jarring part of this movie, and especially of this scene.
yeah, it's very affecting. And then you think that they're all going to get killed essentially, and Sammy turns up in the van and manages to run over the two Americans that are sort of,
Superb driving.
oh, amazing, great.
Literally manages not to hit anyone that's in his party, but manages to get Plemons and
Well,
his friend.
he knocks Jesse into the pit, doesn't he? Into
Someone
the
had to go
shallow
in the pit.
grave. Yeah, and then
Someone
there's
had
this
to go in the grave pit. That was always going to happen.
brutal, like aerial shot of Jesse trying to get out of the pit, and it's just like at least 50, 60 bodies in there.
Yeah.
And she crawls over them, and it shows the human cost of a war like this in its own way. And it's this how brutal and murky civil wars are. Who's your enemy? Just because you come from this state or just because you come from this town, you're my enemy, regardless of who you are as a person. Like that really hits home the whole. If this was to happen, this is the thing that happens. Yes, governments get deposed, yes, regimes might change, but it's the human cost of war every time that's going to
It
be the
juxtaposes
thing.
nicely with the scene in the sort of town that's not really been touched by the war.
Yeah,
More or less bypassed it. They're living a fairly normal life, although there are militia on the roofs, kind
yeah,
of protecting the town. But it juxtaposes really well with that. Another scene that jumps out for that rule of law breakdown is the scene at the gas station where they pull
yeah.
up and Jesse spots a couple of guys hanging in a car wash.
Mm,
And described as looters, but I guess they probably just tried to look,
probably
trying to get some food or
offered
fuel
the
at
wrong
the
amount of money for gas, perhaps.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
love the fact that, they have this big reveal where they go, it's 300 Canadian dollars.
yeah,
And that is great because, not only is it, true to form in places where rule of law breaks down, often like gold or dollars or pounds become, the key um, currency
mm,
rather than local currency.
yeah. Because
And
obviously inflation and things like that. Yeah,
yeah, and it just the government may have fallen, so government issued
yeah.
currency completely loses its
And
value.
he has a great line where he says, "Oh, 300 US gets you a sandwich. We got ham or
Yeah,
cheese." It's a great line.
it's great.
Yeah.
That whole scene's really good.
Mm,
Um, and it just illustrates that's a group of men that are defending what they own
yeah.
and yet have seen that rule of law and society is broken down to a point where they can push the boundaries to the fact
Yeah.
that where they're probably going to kill those dudes.
Even the young lad in the cap, he says, doesn't he, to the
Mm,
to the girl, he says, "Oh, I knew this guy. I went to school with him.
he was a
He
bit of a
didn't talk.
dick.
He didn't talk to me much, but he's not going to talk to me much now." It's like it's
Mhm.
all that kind of this horrible, like, oh well, it's it's
It's
it's a war, isn't it?
it's
Kind of
one of those
mentality.
things that occasionally films hit really well, where it highlights just how close to that kind of situation society can be
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
right factors in play.
I mean, everyone's got a mean streak in them deep down, but it's usually society and the way that we work and the way we interact with each other that stops us. And when that breaks down,
Yeah.
who knows what people would do? And I think that's the point of the movie, isn't it?
Hmm.
At points, but then that's very good. And then obviously, the final assault on DC, as I mentioned earlier, it's so tightly
Yeah.
done. every penny of that budget is being spent so well. Really interesting to see street to street fighting in a US city. We don't really get that in movies. I think the only time I've ever seen it done in any form of media was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 when the Russians invaded New York. That reminded me of that a little bit.
Get a little bit kind of flavor of it in, Battle Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, and of course you do.
You get troops on the ground in that, but it's not the same That's obviously they're fighting aliens. It's not the same at all. But
and you've got the streets of DC are like piled up with cars where the people try to make roadblocks, and just handfuls of loyalist troops to the president just taking pot shots at the Western forces who clearly now are like the bigger force. Because
you get introduced to that when you arrive at that camp, and the film layers up the number of Chinooks that it's following. It starts off by following like a little scout helicopter, and then it's a Chinook, and then it's another Chinook, and then it's another, and you think, oh, okay, this is the force that Nick Offerman at the very beginning of the film was issuing a ridiculous propaganda speech saying we're at the crossroads of achieving a brilliant victory.
Yeah, this victory will go down in like the history books as like one of the greatest military victories ever. And it's like he's clearly just trying to save
propaganda stuff, like really outlandish once you understand the context of what's actually happening.
Yeah. But I like the way that scene did it, where you're at this massive military base, and because you're with the press team, it doesn't matter if because it's obviously a civil war. It's a bit different to a regular conflict where there are defined sort of different armies, but like you're never, not in a bad way, but you're never sure like, oh, are we with the bad guys now? Are we with the good guys now? It's so morally ambiguous, and I really love that. And it's clear that these Western forces have really they're the dominant force, really. The amount of kit they've got.
You got guys in Marpat, which suggests they're former Marine Corps. There's a Chinook that has a 7th Cav unit logo on the front of it, which is kind of faded.
They've got so many different,
and they've just painted up like a WF on the side of it, and little visual cues like that are really interesting.
That WF reminded me of the Z on the Russian tanks in Ukraine.
A little bit,
a bit of that. Yeah, I really enjoy that.
A little bit of the Wolverines as well from their dome.
Definitely. I thought we might have seen something a little bit like that, but I'm glad they didn't, because it would have been out of place. So Matt, some of your favorite bits.
So I've got one small one and then one more substantial one. I really liked, there's a little sequence where just after we're introduced to Lee, she's in a hotel room and she's just finished uploading a story. And she heads up to her room and she's in the bath, relaxing, and she has a bit of a flashback, as you mentioned earlier, it flashes back to some of their previous experiences. But then I thought, when I sort of, as soon as I saw that, I thought of that photograph of Lee Miller in Hitler's bath in Munich.
Yeah, that was really on the nose. Yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed that.
So it's David Sherman's photo of Lee Miller sat in Hitler's bath, and it's kind of like the tiling and the style of bath, and just the fact that it's the two Lees. That just jumped out at me. I assume that was
it's coming out on September the 13th in the UK on Sky Cinemas.
Heard it here
for everyone. Yeah. Press release a couple of days ago, actually.
On the US's 103rd most popular movie. Podcast.
Yeah. Well, no, we're lucky. We're in with the Sky people for that one, so hopefully we'll get.
Hopefully we'll be able to.
Really looking forward to that
review that.
Yeah,
I am too. And another of my favorites is I liked the sniper sequence as well. I thought that was pretty good. They arrive at a golf club, which has a winter wonderland sort of amusement.
Yeah, like a kids thing.
Yeah, like a seasonal fair type thing.
Yeah.
It's midsummer, so it's very jarring, and you've got the music playing as well, which is weird, and there's sort of it's
unsettling.
Very unsettling, and there's mannequins strewn around, but there's a dead body in the road, and they know it's a sniper because it's a very precise shot. I think the guy shot in the head, and they they drive forward and they immediately take fire, and they drive over the body, which is again very jarring, and they take cover. And then it's a really nice reveal. The camera kind of like pulls back and shows a sniper and spotter laying on the ground next to a diorama. Yeah, diorama. Next
like
to a diorama.
Santa's grotto or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of like it's like a living room, like a Christmas scene.
Yeah.
And Lee's taking a look through her telephoto lens. Jesse's taking a photograph of the sniper team. And they have this conversation, and Joel's kind of shaken, and he's asking like, "What's going on here? Who are you guys? Who's giving you orders?" And the sniper turns and says to him, "No one's giving us orders. They're trying to kill us."
Yeah.
And that is another one of those little vignettes of those moments where it's war, it's chaotic. There is no real structure. It's two dudes that have been shot at trying to kill the guy that
whoever shot at him.
Yeah,
it could have been.
It could be one of theirs. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like it's a survival sort of situation.
I like it in that scene where the sniper goes like, "Can you all shut the fuck up?" Because he's trying to like get the shot. It's really good.
And Lee's sat underneath a truck, and she's looking at some wildflowers, some bluebells.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously what we haven't mentioned is when Sammy kind of runs over Plemons and his friend, he's wounded mortally on the way out.
Rip our king.
Exactly. And that's the kind of the turning point where Lee is starting to ruminate more and more and turn inside herself to her.
She has like an existential crisis, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. And looking at that bluebell, she's she could be thinking 1,000 things, but she's probably thinking, what is the point of all this?
Yeah.
Why am I lying here under a truck next to these people that are trying to kill each other? And I really like that scene. That was one of my favorites. I also really like the scene where they drive through the forest that's on fire.
Mm-mm.
And I thought that was a really nice visual because you mentioned it when you came out of the cinema earlier today in a message. You mentioned it as being one of those visual touchstones to coming of age and
like the whole hand out the window
movies and yeah, exactly. And I really like that because they're all looking out that window at this amazing landscape with awe. They're all kind of looking at even Sammy's looking out the window with awe,
Yeah, well, he got a severe blood loss. He's probably delirious at this point.
That's true. Yeah.
But like, the only reason that stuck with me is because it reminded me of a very obscure Family Guy cutaway gag where they're like, "This is brought to you by, like." Hand out of the car on a road movie productions. It reminded me of that because it's very indie movie, like esque, but it works because this is probably Jesse's first big trip, and especially one like this, because we're not sure how she got to New York from Missouri or whether she was living there or whatever. But it for her it is it's a trip, and I like the way it does that.
There is a youthful innocence to it, which obviously is again flipped on its head.
Yeah. I think maybe we should go into final thoughts.
I think so. I think we're probably going to meander a bit there as well.
Definitely. Yeah. So I've got it here, and I said it to Matt this afternoon after I came out of the cinema. It's the first thing I said. I was like, the mid-budget war movie is back with aplomb, and long may it rain. Because we don't get these fucking movies anymore. We don't get like Fury was the last one you could have said that was like, was that 50, 75 million quid? Like this is 50 million. It's A24. They're clearly they must have had some sort of dynamical shift over the last few years. They're going for big budget, they're going for acclaim, putting money into productions, they're getting big stars on board, and it's working. And this shows that the war movie genre isn't dead. It doesn't have to be this massive event with some huge cast of A-list stars, recreating a battle from World War II. It can be something as interesting and different as an alternate reality American Civil War movie about photojournalists. Like, it just shows that the movie, the genre itself, and this is one of the reasons we do the fucking show, is the genre itself is so vast. but people don't stop to think. They just think war movie, it'll be guns and it'll be tanks and it'll be
Well,
this and
no,
that.
that's it, exactly. The thing about the war movie is it's one of the most versatile genres of film that allows you to tell a whole plethora of
A
human
raft of
stories.
stories. Yeah, exactly.
And I think what this film is doing is it is a rumination on how close society is to this sort of thing, but also it does pose those questions for journalists of, do you take that shot? Do you get involved?
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
great line from Dunst's character where she says, you have to distance yourself. We take the photos so people can ask the question later.
Yes.
We don't get involved in the
Mm.
moment. And that reoccurs later on when Joel meets the president. Because
Yeah.
this whole trip is to go and interview the
Yeah,
president.
that's the point. Yeah.
And the interview is very different to what Joel probably initially thought it would be.
Yeah.
It's at gunpoint, and he just basically asks him for a quote, and Nick Offerman just goes, "Please don't let them kill me." And Joel goes,
Yeah.
"That'll do." And then they off him.
Yeah, and it's this whole thing of like, I love that arc for Hoffman, as small as it was. He starts off and he's like rehearsing his speech, giving it the whole chest out, chin up, kind of pompous man, and then at the end he's this cowering wreck clutching onto the White House desk as they're dragging him out, and it's
Well,
almost
it's flavors of Gaddafi and Hussein when they
well, they
when they
mention
when
that,
they
don't
found
they?
them.
Sammy mentions it. He says, these great people usually aren't that when you meet them.
Yeah.
They're usually not what you expect. And it's not the ending I thought we'd get. I didn't know we were
I
going to see
honestly
the end
didn't
of the
think they
war.
go as big as they did. I mean, let's just talk about that final act because
Again.
well, yeah, we get a great establishing shot of Apaches flying over the city, firing miniguns into positions and firing rockets. Then we're on the ground, and there's troops pushing through barricades, and there's snipers in windows, a mortar team on a roof firing mortars, and they do a great pull out where it kind of shows the track of the mortars landing, and then it zooms back into another sort of team running across a roof, and then we're at the White House and they're assaulting the White House. And we get that scene with the Carl Gustav and the attack on the Lincoln Memorial as well with the javelin.
Mm,
That 10-15 minutes crams an awful lot in. And
really
then
does.
what I thought was really interesting is at the very end where they think that the president has left in the Beast and the limo, but it's not. It's a group of his
Like
staff
AIDS or
just
something.
basically
Yeah.
trying to escape, and it's very reminiscent of the aides escaping in Downfall
Yes.
from Hitler's bunker, where they slink off and try and escape through and end up being captured or killed. And I also liked the moment where Lee is looking at the beast that's crashed, and that's a great sequence of its own. Like it bounces off a Humvee or two, and then a Humvee like careers into it
and smashes
because
it
they
off an Abrams.
Yeah, they all want that kudos of being the one that captures or kills the president. And Lee looks at the beast and she says, "He's not there. He's not in there."
He's not in it.
She kind of has this
clarity.
sixth sense, the clarity of knowing. And I listened to an interview with James Penrose, Lee Miller's son, and he was talking about his mother, and he was saying that she also had this sixth sense of knowing where she should be. And he talks about how everyone was rushing to get to Berlin and be there for the final moment and capture it. But she and Sherman, they decided to go to Munich and they went to Dachau. And that was, that produced far more important photography than they probably would have gotten in Berlin where the chaos reigned, So I that was probably not a parallel that the film intended, or maybe it
fully
was.
get it. Yeah.
But it gives that sixth sense that you often read about, combat photographers and war journalists having. And for me, on a personal level, it was a really interesting confluence of aspects of my life as, being interested in photography, being a photographer, being a journalist, working in, defense news, and being a historian that finds combat photography and the history of it really fascinating. So it was all really, it was a confluence of so many things that I've found interesting, and it didn't disappoint, which I was really pleased about, because there's been some reviews that came out and they didn't get it. I don't think.
They were looking for reasons not to like it.
Yeah, and I don't read reviews before I go into films. I tend to read them afterwards to see what people thought of it.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than reading a review and then having that taint your experience.
Exactly. Exactly. If you're listening to this, hopefully we won't taint your appreciation of it when you go and see it. But this is why we give spoiler alerts.
Yeah.
For me, I thought it was really well paced. I thought the cast was very strong. I loved the mise en scène in the White House where they walk through. So many rooms are depicted in that. It's great.
Yeah.
You know, there's takeaway stuff strewn across. There's documents. There's burn piles.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
There's all sorts of just small things that they've thought of. And just the way that they progress through the White House is really something as well.
Becomes a little CQB sequence. It's really nice.
Yeah, and that's really well done. And the Secret Service are giving their all, and there's only like 4 of them, and they hold off that team for about 5 minutes.
They're railing through those MP5 mics.
That dude with the MP5K that tries to slide across his desk and get cover and gets lit up.
It's a slump of the body as well. It's everything in that is so well done. Like I've got it here. It's it's solid, well-made written war film, and there's so little films dedicated to war journalism. There's that 90s Sarajevo film that comes to mind, but it's like seeing the war from a team of people whose job it is to sit on the sidelines, like not picking a side, is a refreshing take on the genre anyway. I think we've mentioned it a few times, but it's as you say, it's the blend of like the road movie, indie, coming of age, war film thing, the editing and the soundtrack choices, like having the sequence with the Hawaiian shirt chaps in their firefight, and their mate gets shot and they're dragging him out, and then they finally take this little building and they take prisoners, but then that's backdropped to De La Soul.
Kill them as well.
Yeah, but you've got like De La Soul
with a 240.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that they absolutely have like brutally murder these men, but it's done to De La Soul. Like it's so juxtapositioning and crazy.
The soundtrack is really good, actually.
Really great.
It works. It fits very well.
And I think that's the thing of it. Like, that's what I took from it anyway. What's going on is so crazy and madcap that any random song in that sequence works. And having a De La Soul rap, kind of like 90s feel good rap song, like really, really works. And we haven't mentioned it yet, but the stills taken by the press team, they bookmark sequences and you get them as the pictures developed, and that's really great. Like I hope they do it in Lee Miller, or they do it in the Don McCullum biopic if that ever gets made, because it's such a great way of sort of showing the vignette of the sequence and the way the images can be so powerful. Really, really great. The only criticism that I have, and it's one that I've seen a few people have, and it's very, very small, but I just want to know more and see more of the conflict that Garland has made, like the why and the how. It's all very vague. I understand why they chose the route. Sorry.
It'd be great if they did like a narrative novel or like a graphic novel or something like that.
I'd love that. I'd read it.
It reminded me in that respect of World War Z. We got the graphic novel before the film, obviously, but the graphic novel gives a lot of context that the film doesn't give.
Yeah, I'd like that. Or even we talked about it before we went on air, but even a mini series like following different press teams throughout the conflict. That would work well here.
Keep the press journalist, photojournalist element, and run with it that way would be a really good way of doing it.
Have a writer, have a digital content creator, all these things that we have now that we haven't thought about really in film terms. Show their job, show them doing it, because
fact-checking team.
Yeah, fact-checking, that'd be fantastic. Like, there's so many ways you can approach this war, and you don't have to show a battle every time, but you can delve into it and explain how it happened and how the world works, and why did Texas and Florida secede, and why did they go against the president. Like, there's so much going on there, and I just felt, my only criticism really is that I felt we were maybe one or two lines of exposition away from fully understanding the motivation behind the men and the women fighting.
They mention he's doing a third term, and they mention he's doing things like airstrikes against US citizens, and they mention the fact that he disbanded the FBI, and it's clear that he's become an authoritarian dictator.
He's doing what the heck he wants,
But it doesn't the film doesn't give us any motivation as to why he did that himself, or why why they went along that path. And I know that there's a moral and political ambiguity to this, and I'll circle back to this in a moment, but I think there was concern that people on, one end or another of the political spectrum would see this
weaponize the movie.
Yeah,
almost.
Would weaponize the movie and see it as a here's what we should do kind of thing.
Yeah, I get it.
But I think the film treads carefully enough.
It does.
That it muddies the political spectrum within that universe.
It dangles the carrot, and that's what annoyed me. I was the hungry horse, wanted to take a big chomp out of that and learn everything because it's so interesting.
Yeah, well, I love world building. I love a rich cinematic, spectrum of,
and that's got to be
the universe.
It's got to be the mark of a good movie where you come out of it thinking, I want more from this.
Yeah, that's true.
And hopefully we get another crack at it.
I don't think we'll get a film, but maybe something.
Series, book, podcast, anything.
Yeah.
Come on, Garland, come on.
For me, in terms of criticisms, I thought some of the elements were a little bit predictable. I thought the introduction of the two Chinese journalists only to get killed was very trope-like. And I know that you're going to say, well, it did that to bounce off the trope. And yes, maybe, but in some other cases, definitely. But in that case, no.
Wow, I had my argument told to me and then rebuffed to me.
You know I'm right, though. You know I'm right.
No, you are. You are. Yeah.
And a little bit similar with Jesse's death. That is a classic trope. Which
you mean Sammy? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, not Jesse. Sammy. That'd be complete turn the film on its head.
It really would have been.
But yeah, it's Sammy's death. It was kind of choreographed from the
it was
minute
highly,
they introduced him, wasn't it?
Highly advertised. Yeah.
You can't keep up, Jesse. You're too old. Yeah. Like, oh god, they're gonna kill him. They're gonna make us love him. They're gonna kill him, and they did. So but it's a good.
Have an episode of Sammy, like. If they do this series we've pitched, like
early war breaking a really sick story,
have early war Sammy working in the New York Times office, like that'd be great. All these reports coming through, what's happening. See, this is the mark of a good film where you want more, and I think.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I like I said, it's really well directed. It's very well paced. The writing is good. The performances were really solid. It kind of feels to me that it's in that vein of It Happened Here, which we've covered on the pod.
Yes, very much so.
Children of Men, a little bit of Red Dawn. But then again, as you said earlier, and as I said when I came out of it, it's kind of road movie, indie movie, war movie.
Yeah,
it's all political, it all like journalism intrigue movie a little bit, but not much. Yeah. There's little bits that kind of come together.
There's enough. There's kernels in there. There's enough, isn't there? No, I really enjoyed it, and we thought, we had plans that what we were going to come back with, and then we looked at the date and we thought, hang on a minute, there's a big war movie coming out. We better cover it. In classic Foff style.
I'd expect nothing less from America's 103rd best movie review podcast.
Yeah. So no, really thanks everyone for listening. It's good to be back. We're going to be back on the saddle with some more war movie reviews coming to you soon. We'll finally get our final Masters of the Air episode out.
We will, yes.
Because my life took a massive turn the week that was literally the day it was meant to air. So we couldn't get it out. So we've got all your thoughts and all your takes on it ready to go for that episode. Then we're going to do a Last Stand special and talk about some of our favourite Last Stand movies. And then we've got a few guests lined up ready to come on when we get them on. And yet again, thanks for sticking with Foff over this month when we were off. And we hope you enjoy listening again, because we love it when you love us. So thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll catch you next week.
Much more to come. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.